So my name is Rachel Cudler. I work at Chatham Youth Development Center, which is with the Department of Public Safety. There's the Division of Adult Corrections and Juvenile Justice, and youth development centers fall in the Juvenile Justice Division. I am a licensed clinical social worker. My main job responsibilities are to do individual therapy, I do family therapy, and group therapy. Each student has a treatment team at the facility, and some students are in the custody of their parents, some are in the custody of their grandparents or other family members, and sometimes we have children in the custody of Department of Social Services as well. So there's a monthly meeting for each student, so we have at least monthly interaction with the social worker who's the guardian of that student, and we also, of course, make reports to Department of Social Services. We have to interact with them when they're doing investigations at our facility. So the programming that occurs at our Youth Development Center is a cognitive behavioral approach. We employ what we call model of care, which is a treatment plan that we got from Methodist homes many years ago. North Carolina is actually one of the most innovative states to be therapeutic with the population. And so the cognitive behavioral approach employs the idea that these children were never taught the basic skills. And instead of punishing them for not knowing the basic skills, we are teaching them the basic skills. Throughout each day, the students are working on a maximum of 6 skills to practice, because the ideology of the model is that the more they actually practice using these skills and are taught, what they are, then they'll be able to incorporate them into their daily usage. We also are very trauma informed in that, of course, our therapists focus, myself and the other therapists focus on the understanding that all of the students that I've seen in the many years I've done this have extensive trauma histories, multiple sources of trauma, neglect as well. Most probably have major attachment issues, which is hard to nail down because you need to know their early histories to give the diagnosis. But they did not have caretakers early on who were caring for their needs, therefore it interrupted their cognitive development. And again, I tell people it doesn't mean that they can't be successful, but it does mean that they're going to have more difficulties than the average person with interpersonal relationships in general. The hope for the therapist in a family therapy session such as this is there should be a format, and for example, my format is creating a timeline. So there's an objective. It's not just open conversation, what you did, what you didn't do. It's not about pointing fingers. We are creating a timeline where the parent is getting to tell the child about their life, and the child is getting to tell the parent about their life. And we start with the parent being born. So the idea is for the child to get to know who their parent is, not just as a parent, but as a person, and the parent to get to know their child and what their experiences have been, so that they can start to understand each other, start the process of forgiveness, which is very healing in the process of trauma therapy. The more that they heal from their trauma, the less internalized negative emotions they have, feeling misunderstood or feeling unloved or feeling just confused about what happened. And the more they can heal from those emotions, the less anger they'll have, and therefore the less acting out behaviors. So some of the common challenges when working with Department of Social Services within the Juvenile Justice Division would be that a lot of times the actual worker has spent maybe years working with the student and has been through many challenges dealing with the child's behavior. And then when they are eventually committed to a youth development center, which is the equivalent to prison in the adult system, it's the long-term care, meaning that they've had multiple misdemeanor charges and or felony charges. So there's been years of problems with this child, and sometimes I guess the Department of Social Services doesn't understand the programming that occurs at the Youth Development Center the background of the programming and what it is that we are doing at our facility. So some of the misunderstandings come from the old mentality that juveniles should be treated with a more punitive approach. At a youth development center, our goal is to improve their social skills and their thinking patterns, as well as heal from past trauma, and not about how much time they actually spend at the facility. When a student comes in DSS custody, they're going to be leaving to go to another placement. It might be a group home, it might be a foster home, it might be another, a group home depending on what level. It might be a different level of group home. Whereas students who come in a family member's guardianship usually go home. So that's another difficult reality of a child who has been bounced around from home to home in DSS custody and been in different group homes, foster homes, placements, detention, and now at a youth development center. It's difficult for them to be working so hard to get through the stages at the youth development center and stay motivated to the same degree, knowing that they're just being released to another facility or another placement. You probably see a little bit more self-sabotaging and institutionalization with kids in the custody of the Department of Social Services, because they feel that they have less to work towards, as well as they become comfortable at our facility and they get to know the staff and they get to know the program and the daily schedules and the field trips, and they would rather stay at our facility than have to start somewhere brand new again and get to know that whole process over again. So there have been many times that the Department of Juvenile Justice has interacted very well with Department of Social Services in collaboration on students' programming, where the social worker was very much a part of the case, was attending the monthly meetings, was able to provide a cell phone number for the child to call, because children get a certain amount of phone calls that they earn as their privileges. And it's been great when the Department of Social Services, when the worker can provide a after-hours number, and that student can have that relationship and continue and receive their phone calls and speak to the social worker. So some other things that have been helpful, of course, is when they are approving of the therapist to do family therapy sessions with family members, even though they're no longer in those family members' custody. That's been very helpful for the trauma work. Another thing that has been very helpful is students can earn off-campus privileges, such as being taken off to lunch or something to that nature. And there have been DSS social workers who have come to take their students off and let them take advantage of that privilege that they've earned. And that's, one of the difficult parts for the kids who are in social services custody, because they're watching, the other kids getting to go off with family members, having visits, visitors come. And so it's really great when the social services social worker can come and provide those visits. In all my experience of working with this population, all of the children have a lot of trauma and have been through a lot of things that cause them to behave the way that they behave. And they've learned survival techniques such as being tough and being scary, and sometimes stating to hear voices or being psychotic, but those are their defense mechanisms to get the attention that they weren't getting and the help that they need. So just for the Department of Social Services to understand, these children are really crying out for help by their behaviors. And it's easy to take it personal, or it's easy to get frustrated and get upset with the children, but it's very important to understand that there's a root to those behaviors that they're displaying. I think it's also important for the Department of Social Services to understand that the staff at the Youth Development Center, we want to work with you. We want you to be part of our treatment team. We have monthly meetings, and there's even more contacts between the caseworker at the facility and the DSS worker. And as well can be more if there's family therapy going on. So we want you to be part of the team. We want you to understand the treatment that the student is receiving and be a part of that and help it to continue once they are released back into the community.